Okay, thank you, Stephanie, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Today we want to hear about you and what you do, and so I guess we're gonna start off, but like, what did you start as study in college?
I went to Catholic University of America with a focus in politics. So my actual major was going to be American government. It's part of the politics program where there's three different opportunities you can go into. I ended up getting that major and then minoring with a degree in French and almost a minor in English literature, which was absolutely a vanity project that I did not complete, but it was a lovely experience. And I hoped to go into campaign politics or take the LSAT and go into law school.
So how did that go for you, the LSAT and, going into politics? Did it work out for you or?
I had a great experience working as the volunteer coordinator on a congressional campaign that was ultimately unsuccessful, but it was the perfect out of school test to see if I liked the environment. The instability was a pretty big factor for me, not knowing what post-November life would look like. So simultaneous to actually working on that political campaign, I had studied for the LSAT. I took it. I was not enamored enough with the idea of more school, or specifically, I had no desire to practice law. That was never the ultimate goal. So once I had the campaign experience and I had the LSAT experience, I actually decided that neither of those things were going to kind of light my world on fire. Personally, I also craved stability of a non-temporary job. And campaign politics is not for the faint of heart. There is no stability, which some people thrive on and do amazing, amazing work. It wasn't for me. So I ended up starting to apply for kind of your more standard office marketing type jobs to see where that ended up.
So what is your current profession now?
So I wandered into hospitality in a very diagonal direction. I'm the director of member services and support for Historic Hotels of America and Historic Hotels Worldwide, which is essentially a supplemental marketing program for hotels that meet certain standards. It's a for-profit company, although it sounds like it might have a non-for-profit background. It is a for-profit program of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Now, here in the U.S., the National Trust for Historic Preservation does not receive any federal funding. So all of the buildings and the parks and the trails that you see that have been designated and saved have been essentially donated funds or earned funds in trusts and things like that. So we're a for-profit program, so a fraction of everything we do flows into the National Trust. So they're able to save buildings. Save the birthplace of Nina Simone was a big project they did last year. So they're able to actually preserve our history, all versions of our history, all stories. And that's our job, is to help them.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, so how did you get into this? I mean, this is such a cool, historical, backgrounded profession. Like, how did you get into this?
So, very specifically, I interviewed and got the job at the right time for me. I was interviewing from a distance. Right after the congressional campaign, I knew I wanted to end up back in Washington, D.C., which is where I had gone to school. And I was interviewing for, as I mentioned, pretty entry-level office positions that weren't temporary. So anything that I could get that sort of seemed admin, it's a foot in the door. It's incredibly entry level. I knew that my political background wasn't strong enough to go into any kind of legislative position. So I was really starting with my basic efficiency skills. And the interview for Historic Hotels happened to just be a perfect confluence of what I was interested in, and also the job I had had to kind of make money while on the congressional campaign, where I worked front desk at a small local inn. And hospitality is 100% a meeting people industry. I don't work on property anymore, but I work with over 500 hotels that are on property. And the most consistent thing I have found is that hospitality people are a very specific brand of people. They are absolutely looking to give an experience. They're looking to put forth an idea of an experience, but they're also very mobile. They'll move within the industry. And so if you are not a kind, helpful, hardworking person, they're going to remember that at their next position and at the position after that. And so by starting as an office administrator for historic hotels, I wandered into this really vibrant, really big hospitality industry. And 8 years later, here we are now. So
you say you worked your way up. Definitely.
I think I can say that I benefited from a couple of different moments of restructure. And the gentleman who had hired me, who is still someone who I connect with in the industry and who's a great resource for me, he actually left the company about 6 months after I started. And because of our great working relationship, I was able to pitch kind of a restructure and created my own department. And so that happened just about 8 months into my working there, and then progressed in there, kind of developed that, made that make sense for me. Tried to move away from admin and develop the member services department. And then about 4 years ago now, I actually negotiated and positioned to become a director of this department, which didn't exist before I started there. And that was the most traditional negotiation I've ever been a part of. It was a pitch, essentially. I wrote a very long letter to a lot of bosses and then had to state my case. So I guess that LSAT didn't totally go to waste after all, actually. And stated my case and positioned why not only should I get a title increase, a salary increase, but management over other folks coming into the team. And I was able to get that. So yeah, director now and covering a wide swath of the activities we do every day.
Yeah. So as you got your education, was education, say, per se, college education, or, if you were to go to law school, was anything really required for this job that you obtained as like a minor office, applicant?
Not really. That's what's interesting about hospitality. I think that essentially it's a people industry, like I mentioned. And so having the skills I learned in college I think are what make me successful. Time management at the most basic level is something I learned in college that I could not have learned before, purely because you have to be self-motivated. And a lot of what I attribute my success to, some of it's luck. And I think everyone should be honest and say that there's some of everyone's career is luck and being in the right place at the right time. But self-motivation is what motivated me to ask for more and to push for more, and in other moments to take on more and then tell folks I had been doing that more. And I have always found that to be successful. So education is not strictly required for hospitality. That could be a wedding planner. That could be someone who runs a catering business. Now, I don't know my way around the kitchen very well, but I know how to make it look beautiful. And so I think hospitality is something that you do, and if you're good at it, you're going to succeed. It's a very egalitarian, gender neutral. I've seen very gender neutral success in this field, and it's all about hard work and a smile simultaneously.
Yeah, so was there a moment when you knew that this was the career for you? You made a good choice. All your hard work in college was, you were like, yes, I created this per se, section of this work, and that was the final moment you felt that this was it? Or
so full disclosure, at 32, I'm still not sure. And had you asked me at 18, I would have told you with 100% confidence that by 32, I would know exactly what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I've been delighted to be wrong. I think that some of the best learning experiences I've had over this job, which has spanned a lot of my adult life, have been from things I did not expect. No one's 5-year plan included 2020, right? Mm. So you can only take opportunities as they pop open to you or force your way into them. A couple of the moments that I have felt the most successful in this position have been somewhat external in that they're visible. I was asked to speak at a conference in Norway last year as a subject matter expert on American outbound tourism. And I'm sure that your listeners will have already experienced this themselves, but imposter syndrome is something that specifically women in the professional field are constantly dealing with. And I can tell you on stage that day, I still said, this seems weird. Someone else should be doing this. And it was me. And I had been flown there and asked to speak, and I wrote the deck, and I did the, presentation, and I met all of the folks. And so I think that was a really specific moment of being like, oh, okay, well, this is great. I'm excited and enthusiastic about this. But it's also the little things. Being able to negotiate for my own position has been something that I'm pretty proud of. And also when we hire good people. I love hiring good people because I think that's a great way to expand. I'm not in a position to teach anyone how to do anything or what to do in their lives, but at least I can create a safe space for them to figure out their own path forward, which I enjoy doing.
Yeah, so that would be like one of the most rewarding things you would say is, being able to hire and, having these opportunities to travel and,
absolutely
be ahead of this company, not just ahead, but be a face of this company and be
in
able
a weird
to
way. You're absolutely right. Your poor listeners are going to say, what happened there? Yes, I made a terrible face when Kaylee said head of the company. I'm so sorry. It is exciting. And the moments of satisfaction are good people, working with good people, seeing good people succeed. It's also on the really micro level. I am a history nerd. I was raised to be a history nerd. There was no getting around it. I read too much Dear America as a very little girl, and I watched too many episodes of The West Wing with my father. There was no getting around who I was going to be as a person. And one of my favorite elements of the job, and I know we're going to talk about sort of what I do each day, but one of my favorite elements is walking a property, whether it's a new property or a new to me property, and hearing a story, because I've never been into a historic hotel that isn't a part of someone's life. Whether it's where Elvis had his prom, which I have been to that room. Yes, I cried. It was an incredibly emotional experience for me. Whether it's walking into a lobby of a hotel in Paris where Cary Grant happened to stay while he was filming something. So it's so many different stories that had so much impact in so many different people's lives, which I find really satisfying.
Awesome. So is there anything that you would call per se challenging in your job?
Well, to be incredibly specific, would you like me to talk about the 2020 challenges or an average challenge? Because we're having quite a moment in hospitality in 2020.
Well, so since this podcast focus on, the general career, I'd say, everybody has faced their troubles in 2020. So I'd say, the knowing you and your position, the general challenges.
General challenges. Having a thick skin. When you are in a people-to-people industry like this, you're going to have people who don't like you. And that takes getting used to and also is okay. And having permission, again, something at 18 that I did not think it was okay to not have people like me in a professional setting. But there will be people who you jive with really, really well, whether they're coworkers or vendors or external partners. And there will be folks who they're just not buying what you're selling, whether it's you, whether it's your business, whether it's your idea, they're not interested. And that's okay, because the next phone call could be a better phone call. But having that thick skin comes somewhat from politics, but has really manifested for me in this position, being able to walk away from a phone call, walk away from a meeting, and move forward positively. And it's the same for folks who go into hospitality who are working at the property level, because you could have a really difficult conversation with a coworker, with an upset guest, and then have to turn around and welcome a bride who is touring her potential wedding venue. And if you're not having a magical experience for her, she's not giving you her business. And so you are playing around with your emotions, other people's emotions, and you can't quantify them. Someone could be having a day. You can't take that with you forever and ever. And I also think hospitality is a big market. And so there are always going to be hotels. In theory, there is always going to be travel. So there is always work in this industry, which is very interesting. But when you get into the marketing element of it and the branding element of it, you have to believe in what you're selling. Because for me, I couldn't call these people and have this many meetings
Hold on one second.
without believing in what I'm selling. It's too personal. It's someone's business. It's someone's money. It's someone's livelihood. And I need to know that I'm selling something I believe in. So that's really it for me, is the thick skin element of it all.
Yeah, that's super important. And so as we went over challenges, how would you describe a day in your life? Walk us through, you getting on the train to DC, all that fun stuff you get to encounter every day.
So I do. I work in downtown Washington, D.C., and I live in the suburbs in Maryland. Not uncommon in this area. And so it's your typical 9 to 5, 8:30 to 5:30 office job. There's not a ton of people in the workspace I'm in, which actually I have found means you have to get along better with the people in your workspace, because when there are 6 to 7 of you, it's close and it's intimate, and you're not faceless by any stretch of the imagination. And so it could be anything. You think of a life cycle of a relationship in business. I'm probably working on one element of keeping that flowing. So I could be negotiating a hotel that's trying to depart membership. Maybe they're taking it in a new direction. Maybe their budget doesn't allow for our services for the next year. I could be selling a new property. That could be someone that I'm meeting in person. That could be someone who I'm talking to on the phone, negotiating contract details and articulating why they should work with us and why our partnership is actually helpful for them. I also run a program with external vendors. So that's something that falls under my purview in the company. So that means I am connecting people with other people again. So it's all about the connections, all about people, all about making people work well together and figuring out the business need. If a hotel needs something, I have to have a partner that has that thing and can solve that need for them. And then also management, which is new to me for the past 2-3 years, and managing people and resources. And if you treat them the same, you're not doing it right. And managing of people takes a learning I'm still doing, and it's a skill I'm still learning, but it takes time and also a higher level of empathy than I realized before starting. Because if so-and-so comes in with a bad day, that's valid. They're a person. You have to acknowledge that and find a way to let them be successful while still dealing with their personal life, whether it's family sickness, a breakup, a water pipe burst in their house, but they're people, and people are the number one element of what we're doing. So yeah, the average day can be almost anything. And right now it also includes group business placements and social media, while we are at a lower staffed capacity at the moment in 2020. But that's a marketing element, right? A marketing day for hospitality could be any number of things.
Yeah. So per se, what would you have for advice for teens who would be interested in your career path specifically? Not so much just the hospitality industry, as it could vary from catering to
it's a
wedding planner, the whole. So say per se marketing, per se hotel management and such like that, if they were to go into that field.
I think that from the very beginning, you have to get on property. It's not a conceptual industry. This is not theoretical physics. Just go do it. I love that some people go to hotel school, and I love that for them. And I don't understand why it's explicitly necessary. I have met really incredibly successful people who did not go to get an associate's degree or did not go to a 4-year college. And they are now running very large, very luxurious, which isn't the be all end all, but it helps, locations, because they worked their way up. So I think anywhere in hospitality, you have to just start doing it. Go get a job working. I think being too precious about your early jobs is a danger to everyone. Just get out there and develop the habits of working. No one will truly judge you if you work at the local hot dog stand when you're 16 or 18 when you're 32 years old. I worked a bunch of jobs in high school and college, and they taught me how to be appropriate, like how to be at a job and how to show up on time and get your stuff handled and be successful and be kind. But I also think that marketing, just be prepared, right? Don't go into something hoping that you're going to wing it. I saw a lot of that in politics. That didn't suit me very well. A lot of people getting really successful, but on the force of their personality. I'm not here for that. I'm a prep girl. I've got my notes for everything. And I think being prepared is the most important thing you can do.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I feel like everything was covered. I feel like I get a full understanding of what you do for a living, and I appreciate you talking to us, me, and the viewers right now as is, and even in this midst of a 2020 plague. We appreciate your time and everything you're doing, so thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Bye. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Occupation Connection. If you enjoyed what you saw, make sure to click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a good comment below.